Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear cadets of class 9, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to all of you. How are you, my dear cadets? I hope you all are fine at your respective homes. I am Mohammad Moinuddin Khan, Assistant Professor of Botany, Department of Biology, your teacher. I welcome you all to my online class today. Dear cadets, take steps to protect yourself from coronavirus. At first, avoid close contact, clean your hands often, stay at home, cover coughs and sneezing, wear a face mask if you are sick, clean and disinfect the different types of article in your daily use. Now, protect yourself and other from getting sick. Wash your hands after coughing and sneezing. When caring for the sick, before, during, and after you prepare food, before eating, after toilet use, wash your hands. When hands are visibly dirty, you have to wash your hands. After handling animals and animals wastes, you must wash your hands. Now, my dear cadets, our today's topics. Today's topics is transport in organisms, chapter 6. Subtopic is imbibition, diffusion, osmosis, absorption. It means active and passive absorption, transpiration, external and internal factors of transpiration. Transpiration is a necessary event. Now, learning outcome. At the end of this class, you should be able to learn, explain the concepts and necessity of transport in plants, explain the plant and water relationship, explain the concept and significance of the process of transpiration, analyze the role of factors in controlling the rate of transpiration, evaluate that transpiration is a necessary evil. Now, my dear cadets, some important key words in this lesson: imbibition, diffusion, osmosis, absorption, mineral salts, capillary water, accent of cell, transpiration, stomatal transpiration, cuticular transpiration, lenticular transpiration. Now, introduction. Transport is an essential system functioning all the time in all the living organisms. In plants, the conduction of water and minerals is as important as the translocation of food in them. Translocation of water and mineral absorbed from the soil and taken to leaves is as essential as the translocation of food produced in the leaves to the different parts of the plant body. Now, plant and water relationship. Another name of water is life. Life cannot subsist without water. We know that protoplasm is the physical basis of life. 90% of this protoplasm is water. This is why water is called the fluid of life. If protoplasm is devoid of water, all the metabolic reactions that usually occur in a plant will be just in deficiency of water. The important use of water in a plant body are: there is no substitute for water in maintaining the living nature of protoplasm. In order to keep a cell with constant protoplasm, water supply must be ensured. It is necessary to ascertain the supply of water in necessary amount of keeping transpiration and photosynthesis running. This is why irrigation is to be maintained for large plant in the dry season. Water is an important solvent. The significance of water in many metabolic reactions is immense. water plays important role in the circular growth of plant and in their movement. Plants mainly absorb water through their roots from the soil. Absorption is accomplished with the coordination of three processes. Firstly, imbibition, second, diffusion, and lastly, osmosis. At first, imbibition. If a piece of dry wood is placed in water, it will absorb some water in it. We know that dry or half-dry colloidal substance absorb liquid. This is why the piece of wood has absorbed the water. This process is called imbibition. The substance such as cellulose, starch, gelatin are hydrophilic. When they come in contact with water, they absorb it, and conversely, they become constricted when they face this deficiency of the liquid. As the cell wall and protoplasm are colloid in nature, absorbing water, they become swelled up. This is a unique process for absorbing water. Now, diffusion. We know substances are made up of small molecules. These molecules are always in motion. In case of liquid and gas, the motion of these molecules are very fast and shows tendency to diffuse towards the region with lower concentration from higher ones. This movement of molecules continues as long as the concentration of the two regions become equal. Diffusion stops at once when the concentration of molecules become equal. This type of movement of molecules are called diffusion. Due to kinetic energy of the molecules, a potential pressure is exerted and consequently the movement of molecules of solutions or gases from one region of higher concentration to that of a lower one occurs. This type of pressure is called diffusion pressure. The process through which the molecules of any substance are spread from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration is called diffusion. At a constant temperature and atmospheric pressure, the potential energy of a substance to diffuse from a solution of higher concentration to a solution of lower concentration is called its diffusion pressure. Under the same atmospheric pressure, the difference between the diffusion pressure of a solution and that of a solvent is called the diffusion pressure deficit. Because of the diffusion pressure deficit in the miscible tissue of a leaf, a cell in deficiency of water absorbs it from its adjacent cell. The significance of diffusion in the absorption of water in plants is immense. Now, importance of diffusion. Diffusion takes place in every physiological process of the organisms. During photosynthesis, plants absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen as byproduct. Diffusion makes this essential task possible. Living cells use oxygen for the oxidation of glucose. Oxygen enters into the cell through diffusion, and the release of carbon dioxide also occurs in the same way. The loss of water in the form of water vapors through transpiration is the result of diffusion. In cases of animal respiration, exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, carrying of food, oxygen from blood to lymph and from lymph to cell occurs through diffusion. Now, my dear cadets, solution. What is solution? The mixture of solute and solvent is called solution. Example, by mixing, suppose by mixing sucrose, it means solute, and water, it means solvent, beverages, it means sherbet, solution is made. What is solute? It dissolves in solvent. Example, sucrose, salt, etc. Solvent, in which the solute dissolves. Water is the best example of solvent. Now, impermeable membrane. The membrane through which molecule of both solute and solvent cannot pass. Polythene cell wall made of cutin is the best example of impermeable membrane. Now, permeable membrane. The membrane through which molecule of both solute and solvent can pass easily, then it is called permeable membrane. Cell wall is the best example of permeable membrane. Now, my dear cadets, semi-permeable membrane. The membrane through which only the solvent molecule can pass is called semi-permeable membrane. Cell membrane is the best example of semi-permeable membrane. Now, my dear cadets, osmosis. Do you know what is osmosis? Yes, my dear. When two solutions of different concentration with the same solute and solvent are spread with a selectivity permeable membrane, the solvent flows from its solution of lower concentration to the solution of higher concentration. Movement of the solvent through a selectivity permeable membrane, it means semi-permeable membrane, from a solution of lower concentration to a solution of higher concentration is called osmosis. Now, my dear, importance of osmosis. Different necessary mineral salts enter into the cells in soluble form. Cell membrane or plasma membrane of the living organisms acts as semi-permeable membrane. Mineral salts dissolve in water, enter into and pass out from the cell through plasma membrane. Intracellular water and the mineral salts solution together is called cell sap or simply sap. So osmosis plays a very important role in maintaining different physiochemical process of the cell. By this process, plants absorb water and minerals discovered and minerals dissolved in water from soil through unicellular routes here. Due to osmosis, turgidity of the cell is increased that keeps stem and leaf fresh and strength. Now, absorption of water and mineral salts. In plants, the absorption of water and mineral salts occurs through different processes. For the convenience of our discussion, we will learn about what absorption first. Absorption of water. Plants generally absorb capillary water from the soil through their roots. The diffusion pressure deficit in a cell of a leaf is developed because of transpiration, and then water from the adjacent cell moves towards the cell. In the same way, diffusion pressure deficit is developed in the second cell and water moves to it from the adjacent cell. This way, a continuous diffusion pressure deficit is extended up to root hair and a suction force is developed. Because of this suction force, capillary water continues to enter the cell root hair. Water enters the root hair cell through process of osmosis and diffusion. This is why water is taken up into the root hair, moves through the cortex tissue. Look at this, my dear cadets, the figure of absorption and conduction of water by the root. Now, absorption of mineral salts. This water movement is called cell-to-cell osmosis. Then water moves from the cortex tissue to the endodermis, the pericycle, and finally into the vascular bundles. Water having entered into the vascular bundles is taken up and flow laterally through the xylem tissue. The water flowing through different branches and branchlets of the plants. Ultimately, reaches the leaves, and this is accomplished by the active involvement of osmosis and transpiration. Number two, absorption of mineral salts. Most plants absorb some mineral salts with water alone, though some salts are absorbed through the root hair. The meristematic region of the tip of root functions as the main region of absorbing mineral salts. Mineral salts are absorbed in the form of ions. Absorption of salts is done in two ways: passive absorption and active absorption. Now, firstly, passive absorption. Salt absorption in this way is accomplished through the root hairs of plants with the process of imbibition and osmosis, and no metabolic energy is required for it. Now, active absorption. Active absorption is the absorption of ions with the help of metabolic energy produced in the cells. Now, my dear cadets, translocation in plants. Translocation in plants. Translocation in plants represents the movement or flow of water and mineral salts and of the food produced in the leaves. We know that water and mineral salts are taken up the stem through the vessel of the xylem tissue. Scientists think that the force produced by transpiration, capillary action, and root pressure causes the cell sap to reach the leaves of plants. In this way, water reaches the leaves and food is produced there. Then the phloem tissue takes active part in the translocation of food produced by photosynthesis. The food is translocated through the seed tubes of the phloem tissue. Different organic compounds in plants move through phloem tissue at the same time in opposite direction. The compounds in the lower region flow downwards and compounds synthesized in the upper region flow upwards, and the substance synthesized in the middle region flow in both directions. Now, necessity of translocation in plants. Movement or transportation of water and mineral salts in plants is called translocation in plants. All scientists agree with the necessity of translocation of water and mineral substance in plants. Now, the matter of consideration is that the water and mineral substance that are to be used must be taken to the places where the reactions will occur. This is why translocation of water and mineral salts is very important. Water and mineral salts being absorbed through the root hair go through the vessel of the xylem tissue, cross the cortex region, and gradually reach the leaves with the flow of transpiration. Food is produced in the leaves. The food produced in the leaf reaches the different regions of the plants through seed tubes of the phloem tissue. If the flow in the xylem vessel or phloem seed tubes is blocked for any reason, the plants would die. Now, my dear cadets, accent of sap. What is accent of sap? Roots absorb water and mineral salts. The cell sap accelerates slowly upwards. Simultaneously, the lateral translocation of cell sap also occurs. Translocation of cell sap is categorized into two steps. First, the arrival of soil, water, and mineral salts from root hairs to the vascular tissue of the root, and secondly, translocation from vascular bundle of the root to leaves. At first, osmosis, diffusion, and suction from transpiration play an important role in the absorption and translocation of water and mineral salts. The water and the mineral substance absorbed by root hairs move to the adjacent cells by the process of osmosis. From there, they move again to the next cell. In this way, water and mineral substance reaches the vascular bundles of the root and ultimately reaches the mesophyll tissue of leaves through the vascular bundle of the stem. Now, my dear cadets, transpiration. Life cannot be imagined without water. Plants mostly absorb water they require through their roots. They use a very little part of the absorbed water for their metabolic activities. The remaining part of the water is released to the atmosphere in the form of vapor. The physiological process by which water is carried through plants and then released to the atmosphere in the form of vapor through aerial parts is called transpiration. On the basis of aerial parts through which this process occurs, transpiration is categorized into three divisions: stomatal transpiration, cuticular transpiration, and lastly, lenticular or lenticular transpiration. Now, my dear cadets, different types of transpiration. Stomatal transpiration, there are special type of opening with two guard cells in the leaves, young stem, sepals, and petals of flowers. These openings are called stomata. 95% of the total transpiration in a plant occurs through the stomata. Now, cuticular transpiration. There is a layer of cutin on the epidermal layers of a plant, especially on the upper and lower surface of every leaf. This layer is called cuticle. Some water, when evaporated, is released through this cuticle. The process is called cuticular transpiration, my dear cadets. Now, lenticular transpiration. After the occurrence of secondary growth in plants, the airy aggregation of cells that functions as a pore called lenticule develop on the ruptured bark of some plants. The cells aggregate around a lenticule are loosely fitted and water from the inside can be released through it. This is called lenticular transpiration. Now, my dear cadets, factors of transpiration. Now, external factors. Through transpiration, as excess water is escaped through evaporated as suction force develops, causing the root to absorb water. This process depends on many factors. They are roughly grouped into two. One is external factors and the other is internal factors. External factors. The factors which affect transpiration from outside of the plant body are called external factors. They include temperature. The rate of transpiration fluctuates with the change of temperature. Water can easily be vaporized at high temperature and thus transpiration is accelerated. The water holding capacity of air increases if the temperature goes up. As a result, transpiration processed faster. If the temperature goes down, the rate of transpiration declines. Relative humidity. The ratio of the amount of water vapor in the air of the atmosphere and the amount of water vapor that the air can hold at a given temperature is its relative humidity. For instance, the air may be dry in spite of having high water vapor because the air may have a high water vapor holding capacity. Conversely, in spite of the presence of low amount of water vapor in atmosphere, The atmosphere may be humid if there is low water vapor holding capacity in the air. When relative humidity is low, the air remains unsaturated and can retain more water vapor. If the relative humidity is high, the air loses its water vapor holding capacity. When the relative humidity is low, the rate of transpiration increases, and when high, the rate of transpiration declines. Number three, light. In presence of light, stomata open, and so the rate of transpiration increases. In the dark, the process is changed because the stomata are closed. Light also affects transpiration by increasing the temperature of the plants. Now my take is winds. Wind. Because of transpiration, the air around the plant becomes moist and causes the rate of transpiration is slow. When wind removes the saturated air, the rate of transpiration increases. With the wind, the leaves are swung and a kind of pressure is exerted on the stomata, and so water vapor comes out through them at a high rate. This is why with the change of wind velocity, the rate of transpiration also changes. If the atmospheric pressure rise, evaporation decline and the rate of transpiration also decreases. Again, at low atmospheric pressure, evaporation increases and so the rate of transpiration increases. Now, my dear cadets, internal factors. Stomata. The rate of transpiration varies with the number, volume, structure, and arrangement of the stomata. Number of leaf. The rate of transpiration varies with the number, volume, structure, and arrangement of the leaves. Number three, surface area of mesophil. If the volume of leaves is high, the rate of transpiration will also be high. The same way, if the volume of leaves is low, rate of transpiration will be low. Number four, volume of the aerial parts of the plants. If the total volume with all the aerial, the atmosphere may be humid. If there is low water vapor holding part of a plant is increased, the rate of transpiration will be higher. The presence of cuticle area of spongy parenchyma also change the rate of transpiration. Now, my dear cadets, transpiration is a necessary evil. Scientists have agreed on the significance of transpiration. The metabolic activities of the living plant cell are dependent on this process. Because of transpiration, a suction force is developed in the xylem canals called the transpiration suction. With this suction force, a plant absorbs water and mineral salts through its root hairs, and the absorbed water and mineral salts are conducted to the leaves. If the force decreases, the absorption of water will be decreases and the metabolic activities along with the production of food will be slow. In the mesophil of the leaf, a diffusion pressure deficit is developed because of transpiration and helps the absorption of water. A plant keeps the temperature in the cells of leaves within a certain range by continuously reducing the thermal energy absorbed by the mesophil. On the contrary, through transpiration contributes many uses to a plant, it also plays some harmful roles. For instance, if the rate of loss of water is greater than the rate of its absorption, this will causes deficiency of water and minerals in the plant. As a result, the plants may die. If water is deficient in the soil, absorption will be very little, though transpiration will continue as before. To deal with this, nature causes many plants to shed leaves in winter because of the lacking of transpiration. The required diffusion pressure deficit will not be developed, and as a result, the rate of osmosis will be slow. So it can be said that transpiration is an essential activity for a plant through it causes some harms to it. For the contrary character, the scientists could design the process transpiration as a necessary evil, but as a whole, transpiration has continued in spite of having some negative effects because it enables plants to survive. Now, my dear cadets, significance of transpiration. Transpiration is a very essential and significant process for plants. High rate of transpiration is harmful for the plants. This is why transpiration is known as the necessary evil for the plants. Transpiration is very much useful for plants because due to transpiration, excess water is released in the atmosphere, thus decreases water pressure of the plant body. The concentration of cell sap is increased due to transpiration. This creates the right condition for endoosmosis. Transpiration prevents plants from getting overheated and also maintains proper humidity of the leaves. Water is very much essential for photosynthesis, the process for manufacture of food. Transpiration ensure continuous supply of water to the leaves. Due to transpiration, there develops a pull into the transporting cellular tube which helps to lift the water through the xylem vessel from root to leaves through stem. Unlike photosynthesis and respiration, transpiration shows very little effect on the environment. But in sorry, water cycle, but in water cycle, terrestrial plants convert land water into water vapor that go out in the atmosphere through transpiration. During transpiration, a huge amount of water is released in the atmosphere in the form of water vapor. My dear cadets, let's enjoy a video of transpiration in plants.
To carry out photosynthesis and maintain its overall health, water and nutrients need to move throughout the entire tree, even against gravity. How does a plant manage this without an organ like a heart that pumps fluids? As we will see, water is pulled from the roots to the leaves through a process called transpiration. In addition, water potential drives the movement of water from one area of the plant to another using osmosis, gravity, and the surface tension of water. Transpiration begins in the leaves. The arrangement of cells and structures in the leaf facilitate the movement of gases and water into and out of the leaf. A leaf contains several layers of specialized cells. The upper epidermis is one cell layer thick and provides a protective covering. Below that layer is mesophyll tissue. Cells in the palisade mesophyll layer are sites for photosynthesis and secretion, as well as storage of food and water. The spongy mesophyll layer contains a looser arrangement of cells, where spaces between cells aid in gas exchange and the passage of water vapor from the leaves. Throughout the lower epidermal tissue are stomata, which are microscopic openings flanked by guard cells. Gases pass into and out of the leaf through these openings, as well as water vapor evaporating from the leaf, a process known as transpiration. The spongy mesophyll layer contains arrangements of vascular tissue consisting of xylem and phloem that are specialized for the transport of water and nutrients throughout the plant. The vascular tissue extends from the leaves, through the stem, to the roots. Water is transported in xylem from the roots, where the water potential is higher, up to the leaves, where the water potential is lower. The arrangement of the tissues, the functions of the cells, and water potential determine the direction in which water will move through a plant. Water passes out of the leaf as water vapor through the stomata. The water vapor lost from the leaves is replaced with water that enters through the roots and is brought up through the stem in xylem. Xylem is composed of vessels, which are continuous tubes formed from dead, hollow, cylindrical cells arranged end to end, and tracheids, which are dead cells that taper as the ends overlap. This arrangement and the polar nature of water molecules allow water to pass in an unbroken stream through the xylem, from the roots up through the shoot and into the leaves. Adhesion is the attraction of water molecules to a surface, such as the wall of the xylem. Cohesion is hydrogen bonding between water molecules. Together, adhesion and cohesion allow water to move through the xylem in a continuous stream, from the roots up through the stem to replace water lost from the leaves through the stomata. Water enters the plant through the epidermal cells of the roots and travels into the xylem. Water potential in the cells of the roots increases when symporter pumps in the plasma membrane allow protons to pass into the cell, traveling down their concentration gradient. These pumps couple the transport of protons with the transport of minerals and other solutes into the cell. Water follows into the cell, driven by osmosis. The presence of aquaporin channels in the membrane enhances osmosis, allowing bulk flow of water from the soil into the roots. The other main vascular tissue is phloem. Phloem transports carbohydrates and amino acids that are produced in the leaves to cells in the roots and stems, where they are used and stored. Conduction in phloem is carried out through two kinds of elongated cells, sieve cells and sieve tube members. Most angiosperms contain sieve tube members. Both types of cells have clusters of pores known as sieve areas that are abundant on the overlapping ends of cells. These structures aid in the movement of carbohydrates, like sucrose, that are manufactured in the leaves and carried in the phloem throughout the plant, a process called translocation. Turgor pressure increases in the sieve tube members as sucrose from surrounding cells is brought into phloem through active transport. Water then enters phloem from xylem by osmosis, which drives the transport of carbohydrates in the phloem. Water movement in vessels is one way, while transport in sieve tube members can go in both directions. Water potential is an important driver in both xylem and phloem transport, but only phloem transport utilizes both active and passive transport. Our heart pumps blood throughout our bodies to provide nutrients and water to our cells. Vascular plants can accomplish this same feat without a heart, using transpiration, water potential, and translocation to move water, nutrients, and minerals to all cells of the plant.
My dear cadets, now it's some homework. Look at this kiddie question. Plants release extra water as vapor from their body through a physiological process. There are some environmental parameters that can influence the process. Sometimes this process can be harmful for the plants. First question is, what is transpiration? Secondly, what do you mean by lenticular transpiration? Now, my dear cadets, number third, applicable question. Explain the environmental parameters of the described process mentioned in the stem. And lastly, higher order question, what will happen if the process stopped, which mentioned in the stem, analyze it. Thank you, my dear cadets, for attending my online class. If you have any question and query on my class, you can clarify it having an online session with me at the period of your scheduled class. Thank you for your patient hearing and viewing. At last, stay on home because we are passing critical and crucial moment. Take healthy food, take necessary rest, take fresh drinking water, wash your hand frequently, don't go outside here and there, take care of your parents. Lastly, pray to Almighty Allah 5 times so that we all are overcome this crucial situation. May Almighty Allah bless us all. Thank you once again. Your next class is coordination in plants.